Tonight we got a special night because we're going to hear some scary stories. And tonight we have Stacy Butler, and she's going to kind of do her little analytical thing and check things out and talk about this and talk about that. We got Zandine Smith, and he happens to be the paranormal soul brother. And then we got Phil D. Acero, and we're going to take it to Phil because Phil had a very interesting life. Phil, can you tell us about it?
Absolutely. First, I want to thank Paul for calling in from the Utah State Penitentiary. I dig your gear you're wearing. Uh,
It's
I see you're on the salt flats out there. Yeah, but yeah. I grew up in Ocean County, New Jersey, in Dover Township, and it's basically on a town called Tom's River on Barnegat Bay, and we grew up with stories of the New Jersey Devil, things like that. The hockey team, the Devils, got its name from that. I grew up with plenty of stories about that, but it was also a small town that was heavily influenced by the mob, uh, and
mm,
all the car dealerships around that town on Tom's River on Route 37 were pretty much mob owned. I worked for one of them, Ocean Chevrolet GOZ Beagle, when I was in my very early 20s. My father worked for a body shop that was owned by one of them when a guy named Ross Meyer owned it. And then he got busted for trafficking cocaine through the dealership in the 1980s. After that, after he got out of jail, he came down here to Daytona Beach, oddly enough, and bought a Harley Davidson dealership. But what's interesting about that is, as a kid, my father used to get demos from work all the time from the dealership, and he would take us on family vacations in these conversion vans, and we'd go like Pennsylvania down to Virginia, all over the East Coast in these conversion vans, and stay at these odd little hotels. And at night, sometimes we'd come out, vehicles would be gone. The vehicle we came in would be gone. I'd wonder where they went, and I'd come to grow up and think, I'm wondering if we didn't know it was happening, but maybe we were unknowingly trafficking, because they actually found the coke inside like the door panels of the vehicles that were coming up through Ross Meyer's dealership. So yeah, it was a crazy town. So
wow.
it could have happened. I don't know for sure. There was always a story. One time the conversion rate got broken into, and the television set was taken out of it, things like that. But Russ Meyer ended up dying down here. I think he got hit on his Harley Davidson out here on one of the highways. But I was telling Paul and Stacy and Sandine over Facebook that there were a few more infamous crimes that I remember from a childhood. One of them that I remember almost not firsthand, but I remember people's reaction firsthand to it was I was in seventh grade in Intermediate East on Hoover Avenue in Tom's River. And I remember coming into school one morning, and before everybody went to class, everybody's milling around the hallway. And I remember teachers walking around rather quickly and then going to one classroom to another. And suddenly, just it seemed like almost everybody was crying, almost like the whole school, just, especially the girls. And then they released almost the whole school, let us go for the day. And it turned out one of our fellow classmates had been murdered. A girl named Barbara, and she was murdered by a neighbor, Sean Melney, whatever his name was. He was actually a high school kid. I didn't know him personally. He was, I was in seventh grade. I think he might have been a freshman or sophomore in high school, but he was her neighbor, and he had she
Did
went
you
for this.
know her?
I bumped into her in the hallway. She was eighth grade. I was seventh grade, and you know
Wow.
what it's like back then. The girls really didn't talk to boys anyway. I believe she was. We were the Rockets, and I believe she was one of the cheerleaders
Oh,
I,
okay.
I could be wrong, but but I do remember her hanging out in the hallways with the '80s teased hair and everything with some of the more pretty girls that we all looked at and
Yeah.
didn't know we existed. But
Yeah.
I do remember her. And so yeah,
Um,
she was walking to the store to get, because there were all sorts of little stores around our area back then, and she walked to the store for candy or for something or other. He followed her, beat her to death, like beyond recognition, knocked one of her organs loose, something like that, raped her uh, vaginally and anally, and then threw her body in Goose Creek, which is a tidal creek that goes out to Barnegat Bay, and they found her body. He ended up getting sentenced 50 years, I believe, and was released 20 years early after serving 30 years. And I think he was released back in like 2015, maybe 2012 even. And and then went right back to Tom's River. So, and her mother was still alive at that point in time. I'm not sure if she still is now. But then the dope didn't register as a sex offender.
oh,
And so they arrested him again after that. I remember my father still lives in Tom's River. So,
yeah.
this still big news.
Is this the guy that was 15 years old, right?
Yeah, he was 15 at the time. I think he was 46 when he got released. This is going back to like 2012, I think maybe when he was released, maybe 2015. My math is terrible, but so yeah, so he failed to register as a sex offender when he went back home. I believe he lived on Fisher Boulevard. Um, Route 37 headed right through Tom's River and over the Seaside Heights Bridge. And on either side of Route 37 were these little communities. Garfield Avenue, which is where Goose Creek was off of it, which is where she lived. And I lived over there too from time to time. One of the communities was Island Heights that I lived in growing up. And so I'm
Wow.
very familiar with that area. I knew the neighborhood, I knew their houses, everything. And anyways, so he lived on Fisher. There's a place called Opco's Donuts off of Fisher Boulevard that pretty much everybody's familiar with. It's a landmark. And he basically just came back, acted as if nothing happened. Like, hey, I'm back to the neighborhood. Was seen like driving around, waving at people. Moved back into his family's home, and
Wow.
yeah, was arrested for not registering as a sex offender. Also, apparently got a job and didn't like tell his employer. Somehow his employer didn't know that oh, I've been gone for I don't know how the whole thing worked out. So I don't
Well,
know
back
as of
then they didn't do a lot of background checks or anything either. So, I mean, even just
yeah.
if it was 2017 or whenever
Yeah,
he got out.
you're talking like 10 or 12, 13 short years ago. It doesn't seem like a very long ago to me. Like they could have, done a little bit of research. Plus, it's even though it's grown quite a bit since, 1985 when the crime happened, it
Yeah.
still is a small town. You think people would have known, that this had happened. Pretty infamous crime.
And he didn't change his name or anything.
No, no. Yeah,
Wow.
he had a younger brother. I remember, um, and of course, because of the crime that his older brother had committed, he was, his younger brother was everybody thought was psycho, and we kind of like stayed away from.
Oh,
Um, yeah, we blame. He actually blamed his younger brother's deceased now, and he actually blamed his younger brother for the crime. He still refuses to take
oh,
ownership of the crime. Does the he says the devil made him do it. He heard voices. He said he made
of
one
course.
excuse. He said she attacked him. Like, come on, it's a 13-year-old girl's gonna attack a 15-year-old boy, and
Right.
then okay, so she attacked you and you bludgeoned her beyond recognition, and then you raped her.
Right.
So this guy is a piece of shit. Um, and I don't know where he currently resides. He might be back there in Tom's River for all I know. It's kind of hard to put your life together after 30 years in prison. I can acknowledge that no matter
You
what
would
you've done.
think.
Yeah. So, but he got out 20 years early, which I think is complete horseshit. He got a 50-year sentence, and somehow they gave him a 20-year break for this.
Yeah.
And he, like I said, he still never, admitted to the crime.
Wow.
So, and he's considered, like, I think they call it a level 2 or a tier 2 sex offender, saying that they do believe that he could definitely offend again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, well, that's based on that neuronal firing. The neurons are firing in patterns for killers like that. That definitely will happen again. We can talk about that later, though. The patterns that they know that these killers have, and one in particular, the butcher of Rostov, Andrei Chikotov. We could talk about him later, but the stuff that V. Wami, Roy Chowdhury, and Mr. Simpkins discovered at UCLA about the mathematical patterns of the firing of neurons and the threshold of what killers, especially serial killers, when they will kill, how many times they will do. And it's almost like when they kill, even if it's, wasn't a sex act, when they kill, that the neurons start firing, it's almost a sedative effect. And only then, so they're more likely to kill multiple times, in spurts. And
Yeah.
so yeah, but those patterns, we can talk about that later, though. I just.
we can talk about it now. It's entirely relevant to the conversation. And then I'm familiar with Andrei Chikatilo. He was the one who picked up the children coming off the rails, right, in Russia.
Right, from 1978 to like 1990. Yeah, and so they had some doctors at UCLA, some scientists that study the patterns of neurons firing, because when your neurons fire, they have a charge, so it takes a minute to recharge. But these patterns, for a lot of these killers, like say, they'll take 100 billion firings in that same period from 78 to 90 to simulate that, and the pattern will be pretty much the same as, say, Andre. The patterns of the firing, where they would seem like a certain threshold makes them start to kill, and if it stays at that threshold, they're killing. So they might kill one time and it's still there and they're killing, but once that sedative effect comes in, they come down. But so all those people he killed in those 12 years, based on his neuronal firing, is what they were trying to base the patterns on other killers, doing the same
And
thing.
also,
too, they took John Wayne Gacy's brain, dissected it, and they, from the dead brain, they said that it seemed like any normal brain. So they started taking these serial killers and say, can we check out your brain, your living brain? And they discovered different patterns in their brain compared to normal people.
And that's what I sent
Pareto's
you.
law.
Yeah, that's what I sent you guys. Oh no, it's fine, hon. Dr. Kent Keel was working in New Mexico right when I was first starting to try and get my PhD. I wasn't able to get my PhD because I didn't have enough moolah to do it. So I wanted to go work with him, though. So in New Mexico, he was in the prison system with the most violent criminals on the face of the planet that are there in New Mexico. I mean, like, really bad. So what he would do is, like Paul was saying, that you'd put the electrodes and things on the heads, and you'd flash up those pictures, kind of like Clockwork Orange. You flash up the pictures, and you see how differently everything fires depending on what's shown up there. And I haven't read his book yet. I'm going to get it and I'm going to read it to get more definitive answers on how it is. But if you start out with the actual brain of a serial killer, frontal lobe problems is what it is. Back when I first started my psychology degree, it was all about nature versus nurture, which one's which. It's both is what it is. It's simply both. So we were fighting for we have this thing called the DSM. It's the psychologist's Bible. And it's the Diagnostic and Symptom Manual. So they were coming out with the DSM-5, and we were fighting for them to differentiate between a sociopath and a psychopath. Kids these days call a sociopath narcissist, which is ridiculous because narcissism is only a part of what a sociopath is. Because basically, a sociopath and a psychopath are exactly the same, except for a psychopath kills. So, how you raise your person that either genetically has some frontal lobe problems, whereas where we think the empathy is, the the subconscious, that little voice in the back of your head saying this is wrong, knowing social cues and learning how to and feeling those social cues, so any kind of empathy whatsoever is in the frontal lobe, right? You can either be born with it defective, which is usually passed down from father to son, but sometimes it hits the daughters as well. And or you can be like a brain trauma. If you were in a car accident and your brain smashes against your skull and you have any kind of frontal lobe damage, that can cause socio/psychopath.
Wow.
But it all depends on how you're raised. So if you raise your sociopath correctly, hopefully they won't become a psychopath and a serial killer. But if they don't have that good, strong role models and the ability to show between right and wrong, then, if they aren't taught that, then you're going to have either a television evangelist saying that the road is paved with your dollars, or you're going to have John Wayne Gacy or Ted Bundy or, etc.
Along those, that's a great point. Many points that you just made there, and a
Very
great
cool.
synopsis of, I guess, the difference between sociopath and psychopath. Thank you for that one. To that end, I've heard many people describe the modern day CEO of companies as all being psychopaths or sociopaths. Would you
Sociopath.
would you say sociopaths?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they say so. In order to be a truly successful businessman or CEO, you almost have to be,
Or politician.
or politician.
Just, you've got to have that killer instinct, just not be a killer. Then you're just a sociopath.
So
That's a
Police officers too.
Police, some police officer.
Some.
well, there is that police officer that's the last Boy Scout model. The guy that actually wants to save the world, right? I have ran into that type, and they do exist, and thankfully we do have some of them out there. I agree. There is the other type too, and that's frightening.
Yeah. And that's the problem too, is people getting into stuff like being even being a psychologist or a police officer or something that has to do with lives, having somebody's lives in your hands. You can't test for that. Not really, because if you ever go to a therapist, they'll do these like lesson plans or whatever. They'll ask you a bunch of questions. Do you ever have voices in the back of your head? Do you ever feel this way? That's the sociopathic test. True socio and psychopaths know how to freaking get around that. They know how to answer it correctly because they've been to therapists. Therapy for the socio psychopaths it just makes them better at being human towards you and manipulating. It doesn't help.
Hey,
It's like a school for criminals.
Oh yeah, Stacy, Phil, and Zandine. Okay, have you? I know you guys crossed the bridge, the Freeman Belcher Memorial Bridge, going into Davis. Do you guys remember that bridge?
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, Phil, you remember that one? That
Uh,
they,
is that where the before the frog underpass was made type thing? I have
yeah,
a vague memory of
yeah.
it.
That bridge is named after two CHP officers that were assassinated by Louis Rodriguez. And Louis Rodriguez, I have a connection to. When I was an Arthur Murray's dance instructor, I taught Louis Rodriguez and his wife Evelyn how to disco dance. Little, nicest guy in the world. I would have never dreamed that he would be pulled over by the CHP and somehow managed to get their guns, put them on their knees. They were begging for their lives, and he shot them in the back of the head.
That's
Come to
horrible.
find, yeah, and come to find out, Sacramento Bee had a big write up on it. This happened about in 1979. Luis Rodriguez was also too connected to Mary Vincent. Mary Vincent is the woman that was hitchhiking outside of Modesto, headed for Las Vegas, and Lawrence Singleton picked her up, chopped off her arms,
Nope.
both of them, raped her, killed her. I mean, no, well, almost killed her. And
Exactly.
she managed to walk up the embankment with her arms up. She had placed her arms into mud to stop the bleeding so she wouldn't bleed out. And she was taken to the hospital and everything else. Lawrence Singleton was released early and then went to Florida and killed some lady in Florida. And then he wound up dying in prison with cancer. Come to find out, when I got working on a Secretary of State, one of my employees, Elena McEntee, was actually her aunt was married to Luis Rodriguez. So I said, what? This is weird. And then come to find out one of her other aunts was actually married to Gerald Gallegos, and he was a serial killer. Gerald and Charlene with his wife, Charlene Gallegos, serial killers. So she's connected to all that, and they come to find out. Second will be again. I'm reading it. This guy Luis Rodriguez was connected to the Manson family, Charles Manson.
Gosh.
Yeah, two guys found in the
They
trunk.
got the neurovirus of killing and shit.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It's crazy.
the trunk of the car. These two guys dead, and they've set the car on fire, and the two guys are connected to Charles Manson. And I looked at Elena and I go, what the? You're connected to every freaking killer. It's like, it was so weird.
Shit is like
This-
the deviants or something.
Yeah.
Paul Roberts, 6 degrees of serial killers.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. I was just thinking that. When's Kevin Bacon get in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, are you guys hip to those deviants, those intellectual, those killers from like Harvard, and it's like a bunch of data scientists. They killed somebody in Vallejo, and then he killed one of them. They've been online. They're vegans. It's like a death cult. But they're killing. If you haven't heard of that, that's fine. But back to Stacy, when you talked about the images, they have the Japanese just completed an AI model. Guy Takagi used a German model from 2022 of reading images, and then with a guy named Shinji Nashimoto, he actually solidified the program where they would take 10,000 images, and the AI, based on your waves, could see, like an MRI, could see like what you're thinking, bad, good, whatever, and they would make images of it that were like damn accurate. And so now they perfected that.
Wow.
Yeah,
How
so-
can you that's up to it? My goodness, I could only imagine what's going
Yeah, you got, you know what I mean. And so they got to put some ethics down. Like they keep saying, "Oh, we stop to check the ethics, whatever." But the Pareto effect, the power law, 20% of the 20% of the input is responsible for 80% of what happens. And that's true with these serial killers. It's just a little bit. But when you guys are talking about these killers, like one killing, and then going to Florida, I mean, it sounds like their neurons were firing. At that time, not and not stopping. It's crazy. Just listening to, but what Stacy, what killer, and what fascinates you most about the mind of the killers? What aspect, really like get you, to research them?
Well, I kind of had a run-ins a lot when I was younger with uh some sociopathic people. And I so and then as I got older, I realized that like a lot of I married one, I was with one when Paul and I met. Yeah, so I was just like, what the heck is going on? Why Paul says I'm an empath, and apparently being an empath has a lot to do with why sociopaths are so drawn to, the I don't know, sponge that I am when it comes to emotions and stuff. But that's kind of the first start of it. I started watching Criminal Minds back when it first started, and I was like, I think that's what I want to do with my degree. I think I want to go into, back then they didn't have a profiling section of the FBI, but I got into my psychology degrees a little late in life, so I wasn't really able to go into it. By the time that the FBI did get Quantico FBI profiler section,
Sure.
teaching section, I was a little old for that.
Okay.
But it's just fascinating. I like to figure out why they are the way they are. And so I really delved
Yeah.
into all of that. And how do you predict? Can you predict? What is the protocol? We had a big ethical discussion a while back about if you knew, such as the guy that, the boy, sorry, that Phil was talking about, if you knew that he had those kind of psychopathic tendencies, would you, or could you, or is it ethical to put them away, keep them out of harm, keep them away from, what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, they were saying that on history's greatest mysteries, which is on the History Channel. They said that when scientists discover these different prisoners that have that type of brain
Mhm.
that shows that they're a serial killer or a potential serial killer,
Right.
you lock them up now before they kill anybody, or you just let them go on with their life.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
So,
hard. I mean, if they knew about, what was the guy's name again, Phil? I'm sorry, the boy,
Sean Milne,
Dawn.
Milne, Milne, Milne.
Yeah, I would like to have known kind of his background. Did he show signs? Did he, what kind of family did he grow up in? That's the kind of stuff that interests me, is finding out the background and finding the patterns in everything, which is where I'd come up with the patterns of difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. Um, but yeah, so if there were signs and symptoms, should they have locked Sean up before he killed her, raped her? You know?
and
Well,
also too, serial killers, they take on jobs or positions to find those victims, like a long haul trucker. There's a lot of long haul truckers that became serial.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Phil.
There's
the,
still
the,
serial killers out there now that are doing the highway killings.
That's probably a great majority of them. Stacy, one of the thing aspect that kind of trips me out is how some of these serial killers have regular homes, people they're around that they don't kill that are off limits, but they'll kill
Mhm.
anybody and anything else. It's just like, where do they draw the line on that? The ones
like
that do. Huh?
BTK, by
Yeah.
torture kill was like that. He went dormant. He went dormant for I want to say almost I want to say
8 years.
15 years. How long was it?
I,
Around
I
15
thought it
years.
was 8, but it could have been longer.
It was a decade. Let's just say
Okay.
around.
Yeah.
He went completely dormant and then started killing again and got into his family life, into his career. Had a wife, kids, the whole bit.
Yeah.
But one of the other interesting things about interesting and disgusting at the same time about BTK is probably the same thing that disgusts me about Ramirez, the Night Stalker. And this is why I used to be fascinated with serial killers, and now I'm just plain disgusted by them and not really interested in them anymore. Is that as a kid, I collected all the books and read books and was always wondering why. What's the compulsion? Why? Why?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and none of the books back then ever said it. It wasn't until much later that when they started really getting graphic with the books and telling you about more about the crime scenes and what they found about the crime scenes, that it became plain and obvious as to the why. And the
Mhm.
why, from what I've seen, and just on the two guys I mentioned, BTK and Ramirez, is that it is a sexual compulsion.
Yeah.
It is the only
Right.
way, and that is why impotence is so almost the common denominator. It isn't. They threw the McDonald triad out the window. They don't consider that a real thing anymore. Although that still, may hold a tiny bit of weight. It's kind of like the nature versus nurture thing.
Right.
However, the wiring thing, as far as the sexual compulsion, they found semen at every one of BTK's crime scenes.
Right.
That guy literally got off and ejaculated every time he murdered somebody.
So how can he stop? You know, if it's a sexual addiction, and that's what's weird too, because you don't want to stop having sex, you know.
Exactly, and that's the thing. But that also leads another question. Well, how did he have normal sex with his wife and have a daughter and everything else if what really got him off was killing somebody? Or let's just go there. Was he thinking about murdering somebody while he was with his wife and doing
He
it normal?
was.
Probably was.
Hands
Yeah.
down. He was. Yeah. But not all serial killers that rape and murder and stuff, it's not always all about the sexual component.
Right.
Not every single serial killer is about the sexual component. That's what makes them so fascinating, though, to me, is because each person can have a different reason. This could be about, yes, it's about a lot of power and control and
Yeah.
being able to have that power and control. But that's with sociopaths as well. Sociopaths love having power and control over the person that they're manipulating. And they will not let, like my ex-husband, he stalked me all the way from Missouri to freaking California. He was always 1 to 2 hours away from me at any given time, no matter where we moved in California.
What else with it?
Hey, not all serial killers too. That is centered on sex. I mean,
Right.
you had the Dexter killer over in Canada, and he was a movie producer. He did these independent films. He even did a Star Wars type movie, and he would go on Craigslist and lure these victims, which happened to be men, and
Yep.
say,
Okay, I remember that one. Yeah.
yeah, and he'd get them in the garage, and well, he killed one, and the other one got away. So that's how
Yeah,
they
the
caught.
first one got away, and he was too embarrassed to say anything.
Yeah.
And then yeah.
How do we know his wasn't about sex? Because like Dahmer, for example, was clearly about sex. I mean,
Well, and
Yeah, well,
Yeah, definitely.
they have a
but
they have a South America serial killer, and he was a vigilante. He went out there and he was killing men. If you were a gang member, you're dead.
yeah. Well, see, that's what I was gonna say about that. It's like there's gangs right now whereas guys they tell you I got 7 bodies, I got 8 bodies, and like then they go to jail and they're doing YouTube pages saying, hey, don't do what I did. Now they're having to shank and fight each other. There's no guns, but they're getting saluted for how many bodies they have, and then they're seemingly talking normal. Everything is, it's all been normalized. And then you get out and you make money off your streams. Like that shit is crazy. So it's not even about sex or anything. It's
yeah.
about something like you said. But they're classified as serial killer. I don't know if you want to say about their mindset, but that's crazy too.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I guess when the vigilante
I want to
one
ask you a question. Everybody on here, I want to ask a question. While I still think of it. Has anybody here on the panel have they thought about how should I say this? Have they thought about when you think about serial killers? Have you thought to the point of like what it would actually feel like for them to do that? Like Why would they actually want to do that? How deep have you thought about that? Um,
Oh,
um,
definitely. Well, I mean, who I don't know anybody, if you're honest, who hasn't wanted to kill somebody in your life. I mean, I'll admit, yeah, there's been plenty of people that I've wanted to, help shuffle off the mortal coil.
Mhm.
It's only, just, common
um,
sense and I don't know what it is. It just there's that human element that makes me say, all right, yeah, don't do it. I guess that's so what
Okay.
separates a normal human being from a serial killer.
Your frontal lobe. It's your frontal lobe.
The only time I ever thought that way was after 9/11. I was trying to get back into the service again because I was pissed. And
Yeah.
and they said, Paul, you're too old. I thought, God dang it. And I was ready to go Rambo.
you want
I
to
was
get that Desert
I
Eagle,
understand.
AK?
John Rambo.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I've never, I can't say I really thought of, like, I've been super mad, but I've always thought about, like, wow, because where I grew up, like, when you see people die, like, even from young, you just see the impact of it, and you're like, damn, not that it's
Yeah.
just the person that's lying there, not breathing anymore. First, their belly, they're bleeding, and then it's the parents, it's everything, and then you're just like, damn, this shit, like, one little, and my parents, they always had guns, as police officers. So sometimes when they go to work, whatever, as a little kid, I see the thing, but they didn't have to worry, and they didn't know this, but I look at those things and I'm like, man, you know what? This thing will do so much fucking damage that
Yeah.
just put this shit back. Like, you just know,
I've
but
always
that's the only thing that really had me. That's how I was looking at it. But now, somebody did something to my family, or
yeah.
some bullshit like that, then of course you're gonna go to that level. I'm sure, it's just like kind of like nature, but
Well,
Hey,
I used to joke around and say that, okay, so we live in and around, like I grew up in a mining town. It's called or no go. Or no go is where I grew up in. And it was just all nothing but mine shafts and holes and stuff. So I used to joke around when I was younger, and even lately, now that I've got my kids are older and dating and stuff, I say, I know where to hide the bodies. So but the thing is, with your questions, Ann, is that I have thought that, everybody that kind of studies this stuff and says we've studied serial killers so
yeah,
much that we could get away with it for a very freaking long time if we wanted to. But since we have
yeah.
empathy, we're not going to. We have a conscience. We know the difference between right and wrong and what not to do. However, I've also thought in the opposite end of it that if I ever got caught by a serial killer, at least I would know how to survive and stay alive.
Huh.
one thing
Okay.
too, serial
Right.
killers are very deceiving. Okay, for example, Ted Bundy carrying a bunch of books, has a fake cast on. He
Mm-hmm.
takes some books, and a woman goes, "Oh, can I help you with those books?" "Oh, sure." Yeah, and so she starts picking up the
Yeah.
books, and he has a tire iron, and he hits her in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Another one who was very deceiving was the flat tire killer. And this is something that Phil should probably know about because the guy was from Florida, from Broward and
Broward,
Miami counties.
yeah, Broward County.
Yeah,
Broward.
he did his killing from 1975 to 1976, never got caught. They still don't know where this dude is. 12 to 30
Yeah.
victims. And what he would do, you would see a woman on the side of the road with a flat tire. He would pull over and walk over to her, real nice, big smile. "Hell, can I help you with your tire?" And then while he's pretending to help her, he kills her.
Oh,
So yeah,
Oh,
so
you almost said that.
very
I'm
deceiving.
sure I know how to change a tire, so I don't have to worry about that.
I
I
have
did.
Those,
I
No,
I have
thank
to
you.
play.
No, thank
I have
you.
to play.
yeah.
those,
I did
those,
think I had a close call with one. It was crazy. It was a few years back. I was driving down the road and I had this semi behind me. It wasn't even dark out. but I had this semi behind me that was flashing his lights and honking his horn. Well, what's the first thing you're going to think if there's somebody behind you?
Something
That
wrong with your car?
exactly. But I didn't pull over. I turned down the radio and I listened to my vehicle because I know how to work on cars and I know what cars are supposed to sound like. But I sat there and I was listening to it and I was like, okay, I don't hear anything wrong with it. But he followed me for about, I don't know, 5, 10 miles, somewhere around there. And every once in a while, he'd flash his lights and he'd honk his horn, but he stayed directly behind me. Scared the crap out of me. So I waited until I was able to go to a gas station and I
Yeah.
pulled in real quick and I looked, and sure enough, nothing was wrong with my vehicle. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he wasn't doing the courtesy tap. He wasn't doing the courtesy tap.
Tap. Oh, no. Yeah, no, I never did it like a courtesy.
It was a regular.
Yeah. It was, I don't know. It was crazy. Yeah.
Ew.
So I think I may have escaped a serial killer.
Yeah, you could have. You could have. I mean, look
Thank
at
God.
Samuel Little. This guy has 93 plus victims in 14 states, and they
Yeah.
call it the choke and stroke killer. And
Yeah.
just by that name, you know what he was doing.
Yeah, I don't like that name.
He targeted women. I've read his case. Older African American gentleman.
93. Damn.
The what I was going to ask you, Staci, was how I personally don't think it's very realistic, but how do you feel about the whole Dexter, storyline?
I love Dexter because for a serial killer to be taking his whole serial killing out on the bad people, vigilante style type stuff. I like the whole line of that. There was, and I can't remember, I just vaguely remember somebody saying that there was they called him the Dexter serial killer because he was basing his killings off of Dexter. Now, whether or not he was actually killing people that were bad, I don't know.
Wasn't
It's
the guy in South America was the guy in South America? He was a vigilante, and he was killing gang members.
Yeah.
Well, how many people have parents? How many people have parents or relatives or people that are living with them that actually know that's what they do, and they're like, hey, that's your business. And Phil, I wanted to ask you about your town. Do you think, like what Staci said, do you think there are any factors? Is it the water they drink? Is it the upbringing? Is it the parks? What do you think it is?
I think there's crazy in families. I don't think that the town itself is inherently has issues. I mean, the mafia thing definitely has some issues. There's a gentleman named Jimmy Cropperata, who my grandfather actually worked for briefly, who was beaten to death with golf clubs. And I believe that had something to do with the Lucchese family and video poker way back in the 80s. So I mean, it was just mafia. There's also the Marshall killings. The Blind Faith book was written about that, where this insurance salesman and his sons went to school. I went to every school in the Toms River school system there, so I bumped into his sons along my journeys too. And he had his wife murdered at a rest stop along the Garden State Parkway after coming back from Atlantic City, so that he could collect a $1.5 million insurance policy because he was having an affair with another woman. And this is a small town with all sorts of little murders. But I also, in my own family, my Aunt Shirley shot her first husband. I used to call my grandfather every Sunday night ever since I left home, went to the Marine Corps. And, my grandfather's passed away, my mother's father. But his family has been in this country for over 300 years, 352 now, since 1673, I think they got here.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
He would always repeat the same stories over and over again. And one of the ones that always got me was he'd be like, I ever tell you the first person I killed a kid when I was 7. He was 7 years old, 7 years old, and some kid beat the crap out of him and stuffed him in a garbage can.
Oh
And so
gosh.
he waited to plot his revenge. And there was in the Atlantic Highlands in North Jersey, there was this roadway that went, along near a bridge and kind of like just went up to where it was over a very busy roadway. And he waited in the bushes because he knew this kid always took this path with his bicycle. And the kid was coming along with his bicycle, and he jumped out and he pushed the kid right into the traffic. Kid got hit and killed.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. And my grandfather, even to his dying day, had zero regrets about it. Not an ounce of regret about it. So
Wow.
there's, and the other side of the family, my father's side of the family was a straight Guineas, out of the Bronx. So, there are some connections there too. So,
So you think that that's one of the reasons why you were kind of fascinated in serial killers? I mean, not to mention the fact that you had a bunch of people die in and around your life, but like the stories that your grandfather told you and things like that.
I'll be honest with you. It's the reason I wanted to join the Marine Corps. I wanted to legally be able to kill somebody.
There you go.
I'm grateful that I never had the opportunity, so I don't have that on my conscience. I've since grown as a human being, and thankfully.
Yeah.
But I was a very immature and angry young man, when I felt that way. So I think everybody, maybe not everybody, maybe I'm just going from my own skewed view of humanity, but I think some people have that in them, and it's just under the surface, and that's why you have to watch out. You don't know.
If you ask somebody in war, you say, well, like I asked my dad, I said in Vietnam, I said, Dad, did you ever kill anybody? And his answer was, hey, well, look, man, we don't look at who we're shooting at. We shoot like this. We're not going like this, shooting them. So that was his that was his answer. But
the other thing is, when you're shooting, you don't necessarily know if they're falling from your shot or from the guy next to you.
Right.
Hey, that kind of reminds me of when my dad was in the army in South Korea. At his camp, he was on guard duty, and he saw this figure wearing all white sneaking into the camp. And he goes, halt, who goes there? He said it again, halt, who goes there? He said it 3 times, and they didn't stop. He shot the person, comes to find out it was a prostitute sneaking into the camp, and he shot her in the leg.
Oh gosh.
Bad move.
That was the only person he ever shot.
And now they call her one-legged Betty.
Yeah.
He was doing his duty.
Well, you guys know, out here in that one-legged Betty. That's funny. You guys know out here, you can go on Mormon Immigrant Trail, like, maybe an hour away from Sacramento. You can get out and start shooting. They got targets. I mean, just nobody to say anything. You can get out, shoot rounds. Nobody's gonna come.
The Golden Killer was right here in Sacramento. I mean, he was the East Area rapist when he was here, and you come to find out he was the Visalia ransacker, East Area rapist, the original Night Stalker. Now he's called the Golden State Killer. I mean, that guy.
Yeah.
He was too much.
The vampire of Sacramento.
Oh yeah,
Richard Chase.
Chase, yeah.
Yeah, we did a case on that. But you were talking about serial killers, and it is sex motivated. Well, you got Richard Kolinsky, who happened to be a mafia assassin, killed over 200 people, and he enjoyed doing it. And he nothing about sex. He loved his wife. In fact, when they separated him from his wife and his 2 daughters, he cried like a little baby.
Yeah.
And then you had the San Francisco witch killers, and they did their thing from 1981, 1983. They had some 3+ victims, and but they're a suspect in 12 different homicides. And it was Susan and Michael Bear Carson, and they went around if they thought a woman was a witch and they had nothing to do with sex, they killed her.
Well, that's interesting you saying that, Paul. We've gotten lucky that a lot of these serial killers haven't been like the leaders of other organizations and just didn't get caught because the ones that have, look what they did. But I mean like, say any one of the ones you guys mentioned, have they like been part of a code or convinced people? I mean, we just got lucky that the power of these people to do that, because a lot of people, the point I'm making is people salute killers. I mean, this society, like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you say you're a killer, and it's like, oh, he killed somebody. I'm like, fuck that shit. I don't care if you're a killer. Fucking, I'll kill you.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
it's
it's little
glorified.
killers too much, and you get scared, and it's like, I don't care, man. You kill somebody. Look, can you be somebody's friend for real? Can we look at you without thinking, damn, if you get mad, will you snap? Like,
Right.
F that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but violence is, I mean, just look at the movies, look at television, look at music. Violence is heavily glorified. It always has been in our society. I mean, honestly, that's why I got sucked into the military thing. I watched the damn Green Berets with John Wayne too many times.
Yeah. Well,
Rambo.
um, oh, excuse me. So I was watching today a YouTube thing about the banned movies and why they were banned, and Natural Born Killers was one that had gotten banned in several places because people were trying to reenact Mickey and Mallory. I mean, they were even dressing like them and stuff. But the director of that was like, they totally took this out of context. I mean, this was like a really high grossing movie. I love the movie. I think it's great. I like the visuals on it. I love everything about it.
It was based on two killers.
Soundtrack, Ice Cube. Huh.
Yeah, but it was written by Tarantino. People don't realize that that's a Tarantino script.
Right. But the director was like, I wasn't trying to do that. I wasn't trying to glorify being serial killers. I was trying to show his basic premise in the background of it was this is what media does with serial killers is they glorify. He was trying to show what was wrong with the media, not what was right about being a serial killer, if that makes sense.
It was totally with the Geraldo Rivera character that Robert Downey Jr. played in it. I mean, it was so friggin' obvious. It was commentary, and the Captain Lou Albano playing the father role in it was a direct commentary on like the Jerry Springer show.
Yep.
It was or / Married with Children. It was totally roasting American pop culture.
Yeah, exactly.
And Stacy, and
Yes.
it says right here, I looked it up. Natural Born Killers, 1994, screenplay by Quentin Tarantino. Quentin got his idea from the real life murders of Charles Starkweather and Carol Ann Fugit.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
And
It's crazy how they're glorified, and and that's why a lot of the places will be like, well, don't give these killers like a cool name. What if you called them like the dumb penis killer or something? Just give them a stupid name.
Well,
Yeah.
Claus in the
I
West.
like that too.
Yeah,
Hey,
Billy the Kid and all those other ones.
well, this isn't the first movie that's done that. Wasn't In Cold Blood the Truman Capote thing? Is that the same? Who that was that Starkweather? What was it?
I'll tell you in a minute. Hold on. No, you keep on going though.
Yeah, because that was a true story too that he wrote about there.
Um,
And wasn't sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just curious. The last story that you sent about the 85 or 83-year-old woman that got killed, did you know them, or did you know
My neighbor or my good friend Pete that I grew up with lived right across the street from that when it happened, and he knew the murderer, the guy that one of the guys who actually raped and beat that poor woman to death.
Did you get a chance to read that one?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I actually interviewed my friend about that thing in the past because, like I
Wow.
said, he grew up with the kid who actually committed the crime. The kid was like 15 years old when he did it, something like
It
that.
was 15 and 16, I think, is what they said the numbers were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what happened was this used to be a this is South Toms River. So and the way Toms River is laid out is there's this main street, and they've changed it significantly since then. But Main Street was almost like small town America, sweet shop, very
Oh,
quaint,
nice.
beautiful town. And literally, there were train tracks right at the bottom of it, where this, the river, the Toms River, would cross, and a little place called Huddy Park. And as soon as you crossed the other side of the tracks, um, it went from the white side of town to the black side of town.
Okay.
Now, that was from like the 1960s on. In the 1950s, it wasn't like that. It was actually all white, both sides. This couple had been there since like the 1940s, and they were like the one white couple that never moved. And so
Oh,
by the time this murder happened in the 80s, I believe, or whenever the crime occurred, I think it was early 80s. The the husband was like 94 years old and bedridden, and she was like 84, 85, and they were literally the last white
Stop.
couple in my friend Pete's neighborhood. And it was I grew up in a trailer park, and then my parents went from from bad to even rougher when we ended up at the projects, and I was like
yeah.
the kid from the trailer park that went to the projects, and I thought I was Billy Badass, and then I got my ass kicked all over the projects and realized I wasn't all that tough at all. So it's yeah, it was rough. So one of the few friends I made there was my friend Pete, and he lived right across the street from this horrific crime, and so anyways, this was the last of the old white families that lived there, and for some strange reason that they were older than us. They were the high school kids. We were still like seventh grade, sixth, seventh grade, and they broke into this woman in this man's house one night, and they raped and beat this 84-year-old woman to death, and they tried to take her social security money basically. And her husband was bedridden, 94 years old, and listened to the crime happening in the next room, where he was stuck in bed. And then they went and they beat him. Then they tried to set fire to the house to
Oh,
cover crime, and left. Luckily, that's the only reason I think that the old guy survived, was because the fire alerted the neighbors. They called the fire department. The fire department got there in time, and the old guy survived. He lived another year. He died the next year of pneumonia. And anyways, that's how the two kids got caught. Um, and they got sentenced as minors to like 30 years in jail. I think they tried to go up for resentencing something like 20 years later. But my
well, they
friend
got
Pete,
in 2022.
was it 2022?
Uh,
Yeah. So it was one of those crimes that shocked the hell out of everybody in the neighborhoods, because we just didn't understand it. At that time, we didn't think, we didn't know that rape wasn't a sexual crime. You know what I mean? I mean, it is and it isn't. It's really more about power than it is, I guess, about sex.
yeah.
Because we at the time as kids, we just kept saying to ourselves, 84. Why would what
Yeah.
we
Right.
what did what was he doing with that old lady for? And then beating her to death. It was just, everybody was talking about it. It was just one of those things that nobody understood why. But it was, yeah.
Anybody understands why now? That's
No.
Phil,
Right.
your in cold blood was from the 1959 Clutter family murders in Holcomb, Kansas. And one of the greatest performers was by Robert Blake, who happened to be a murderer too.
Yeah, he murdered his wife Bonnie Lee Blakely, right outside of some Italian restaurant in California.
Yep.
Brother.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Beretta.
Yeah.
And I loved Beretta. I loved that. I wanted one of those
Yeah, that was
birds.
disappointing. I was like, what's wrong with this? What's happened, man?
Well, yeah, it was Beretta and O.J. Simpson.
Oh, come on.
Both of them hosted SNL.
Right.
Not only does it breed serial killers, it breed or comedians that breed serial killers or killers, huh?
Oh,
Right.
who else hosted SNL was the guy Baldwin. And he
Um,
just killed somebody.
but
Baldwin.
that's the only
Alec
type.
Baldwin.
That's the only type of tragedy I don't think. I mean, you can find comedy and tragedy, but
Yeah.
those type of tragedies, you just
Yes.
Yeah, he was on the set of the movie Rust, and he thought he had blanks in his
Oh,
I'm
oh,
out,
yeah.
and he killed that director.
That would, that one I totally have to.
what do you
I don't
think?
think I don't think he's responsible for that. I mean, you're an actor on the set. Somebody hands you a gun, tells you to point the gun at the camera for this shot.
Um,
You're an
um,
actor. You're supposed to,
Wait, you
how
know,
you how.
don't understand though. Okay, TLC gave him a reality show, so you're showing all this happiness, and you're talking about a lady that he accidentally killed. Okay, I give him that as accident, but
Yeah.
and you show some sorrow. So you kill somebody and get a reality show too? What?
That's the, that's
Did
the
he get a
problem.
reality show as well?
Yeah, they gave him a reality show to talk about the tragedy, but then it shows his family and he's all happy and they got balloons and birthday celebrations and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
but next thing you know, they'll have a serial killer like 90 Day, or something, or a serial killer
Fiance, 90 Day.
married at first sight or some shit like that.
Some of the people on 90 Day Fiance are in jail. All you have to
Hey,
do is just Google how many people from 90 Day Fiance are in jail.
They have the on TLC, I think it's called Love Behind Bars or something like that.
yeah.
Well, there's
Yeah.
that. The dating game. There's that the dating game. Out was it
Dating
out?
game killer. Yeah, I
Oh,
just watched a movie on him.
Dating game killer. Yeah.
Mhm.
Robert
Yeah,
was it Robert?
they made a movie about it. Of course, it was more about her and what she went through, but it did put everything in perspective on the other people that he had killed, because that's the main thing that kind of overshadows everybody, that all the women that he killed was that or the ones that got away even that it's like, oh well, he was on this dating show and blah blah blah. It's like she decided
Well,
not to go out with him.
Well, that's the case with every single crime. It seems we all know the names of the killers. We know the John Wayne Gacy's, we know Jeffrey Dahmer's, but how many of the victims can you name? And that's always been the one criticism that all the victims advocates always bring up is like, do you know the names of the victims? It's like, no, we don't. We know Ted Bundy, but we don't know. Well, you're right. Nicole Brown Simpson is the one victim we know. But I guess to be fair, OJ was not a serial killer. He killed two people. And he's a killer, but I guess would you call that a spree killer? Even not even really a spree.
Yeah. And there was an actual serial killer that said he got paid to kill Nicole.
I saw that. Yeah.
There's some cocaine that was involved. I mean, like, when you owe people $150,000, you high for 2 weeks. It's a lot of people in LA that'll kill you for like, $1,000. So I don't know what the hell happened here.
They call that heat of the moment killing that O.J. Simpson did. And the other guy, the dating room killer, was Rodney Alcala.
Alcala. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, some of this shit. I mean, we really need to. That's why we need that mind reading AI tool. You can actually. What if they could put that on OJ? If they could have put that on OJ, put it on his head.
See whether or not he actually did it, or
Yeah.
through I was becoming a legal office assistant because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer back when I first started going to school. So I was in school to be a legal office assistant, and that's when the OJ trial was going on. So we like sat and watched. That was one of our classes. We sat and watched the whole thing from start to finish.
Yeah, me
And,
too. Yeah. Whole thing.
yeah. So, and I found out I didn't think that he did do it. To tell you the truth, I didn't think it was him. Now, did he get somebody to do it? Yeah, I think so.
He wrote the book. He wrote the book.
Yeah.
If I did it.
I'm with you there on that. I just, there's some stuff didn't add up. What did you think about what's this guy that just appealed in the Bay Area that killed his wife that was pregnant? What's the guy's name? He's trying to get out.
Scott Peterson.
Yeah, what did you think about that case?
I went to the house. I went to that house and investigated it.
That was interesting. To be honest with you, I was convinced that he did it, but now that they're bringing forth new evidence, they're starting to we need to look at it again, I guess.
Scott Peterson?
Yeah, Scott Peterson.
I'll have to look into that one further. I haven't really looked further into it, aside from hearing the like initial allegations and everything that happened with that. So
it looks too obvious, to be honest with you. I mean, especially the way they painted it in the first place. He was cheating on his wife. His wife was 8-9 months pregnant. He decided to go fishing on like Christmas Day, just as disappeared. He's got the glove on. Here we go, and it doesn't fit. So and he's wearing the prison uniform, so he's perfect. He's got the glove. Well, the most interesting thing too.
Did not do it.
What about Marsha and Darden, Christopher Darden?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, baby.
That's why that trial was so damn entertaining, because it wasn't and Lance Ito with his whole thing. I mean.
Oh my God. Yeah.
that whole thing was made for TV.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it like in America? It was like the first one that I can remember. It was the first one that was actually publicized, like from start to finish. So, I mean, that was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was huge. The big joke was like Court TV was like #1 in ratings for that whole trial. And as soon as the trial ended, Court TV went bankrupt. It was over.
Hey, I don't know what's worse. Do you remember when Geraldo Rivera tried to show that Jimmy Hoffa where he's buried, and like he tagged after he did that, his shit was finished. Do you remember that?
It wasn't that. It was the Al Capone's vault. Remember?
Okay.
Yes. Oh my God.
That was so funny. Oh my God.
We stayed up late watching that. My father let us stay up late to watch it. Everybody's sitting around the TV. Oh, he's opening it. They're drilling away. He's got the construction crew going. He's got live up-to-date thing. What do you think's going to be in the vault? Oh, they're looking through the hole. It's nothing. Not a damn thing in that thing. They got us all in.
That was so.
Yeah, man. That was so disappointing.
Oh my God. The downfall of everybody. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Geraldo moment was when he had the skinheads on and they broke his nose.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, take one for the team and all this.
You could tell he was not expecting that one. All of a sudden, that was like the birth of Jerry Springer.
Of a star, It's just fun to watch. It's like, yeah, I was there when that happened. That was awesome.
Yeah.
My dog didn't like that.
Can I ask you guys something that doesn't deal with serial killers?
All right, what's that?
Have you guys seen Captain America: Brave New World?
I have.
You have?
I haven't seen it yet.
You like?
I saw it with my son.
Oh, okay. And then how Sam Wilson, he was the Falcon, but now he's Captain America. Did he do that role good?
You mean the one that played Falcon in the movie? Yeah. I thought he did good. The script was the script was kind of fast, I should say, but he did good, man. they had him. Well, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, he did good.
Okay, you know what's pissing me off about Marvel though? And I have a lot of connection to Marvel. I mean, I used to write all these letters to various comic books. I'm a letter hack and everything else. I interviewed Stan Lee, but what they're doing, Robert Downey Jr., who was Iron Man, now they're making him Doctor Doom, Victor Von Doom.
Yeah,
This
that's weird.
is getting
Yes.
confusing, and they're
That's
saying
weird.
it's not a variant. It's like I'm confused. How is it that Doctor Doom has Robert Downey's face and so does Iron Man? I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. Well, they and traditionally in Marvel, they have done weird things like that. If you remember, Wonder Man and Wanda's husband, Division, they share the same brain patterns. They share the same mind. So after a while, it got really weird because they both love the same woman and don't know why. And it gets really complicated, But they've done a lot of switches like that in Marvel, with the mind thing and switching the characters, but that doesn't really match, that doesn't really warrant Robert Downey going from Iron Man and you loving him as Iron Man, and now you're freaking Doctor Doom. I mean,
And Dean now, it is a completely different Marvel universe. Duh.
okay. Well, then I can go for that if that's the case because I mean that's how you can do it. I can go with that. I mean, Green Lantern's got all kind of different worlds. I mean, the
Yeah.
what if. You remember the what ifs where they ask you, what
I
if
love
like
those, yes.
I love the what if the Hulk had Bruce Banner's brain, whatever.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Phil, I have variants as the Demon Warrior.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know what universe you're in.
Yeah. Well, even like Zandines, there's Zandine, and then there's a Paranormal Soul Brother. So that's a
Yeah.
variant. You have Al Guapo, and you got Phil. There's a
Yeah.
Paranormal Soul Brother's a little more edgier. Something's wrong with him. I don't know what's going on with that guy, but
We'll do
Stacy,
a one-on-one. Zan, we'll do a one-on-one, and I'll see if I can psychoanalyze what's going on with the Soul Brother.
yeah. He's definitely in need of that. He's in need of that. Yeah. Hey, but you gotta watch. You gotta watch out. He likes some thick and juicy too, though. You gotta watch out.
Oh no.
All right.
No, but you know what?
You go.
Do what?
Big shout out to Big Al though, Paul.
Oh yeah, big shout out. Big Al is a cool dude, and I only met him once, and I met him with Zandine, and we did a segment for Good Day Sacramento. It was righteous. It was really nice. We love you, Big Al, wherever you are in heaven. Right on.
Oh,
And that's
that's so
Well,
bad.
well, fellas and ladies, it's about almost 20 after, and my dogs are telling me they got to go out. So
Yes,
think we
sir.
better
Well,
call.
thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the real psychologist. We like to think a real professional here. It makes our show like way more legit.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Stacy needs a variant. Stacy needs a variant.
Absolutely.
You don't
You
have a
know,
variant.
my everybody calls me well, my gamer name is Tarnished Feline because I've had
I love it.
yeah,
I
so
love it.
everybody calls me Tarn. So
What are you playing? What are you playing?
right now I just do like app games. It's called Puzzles and Chaos.
Okay.
Castle.
Okay.
Yeah, but I got my gamer name back when I was doing Xbox, so that I kept it for 30 years now.
Like that. That's funny.
That's great. All right. Well, what was I guess? I can't even remember. Anyways. Oh, yes.
All right.
Phil, don't forget to hashtag the crap out of everything.
I definitely will. I was gonna try to split this into 2 episodes, but we got carried away, and it was so good that I didn't want to stop it. So
Yeah. Well, you
anyways.
can always find a happy medium. It doesn't have to be exactly at the 30-minute mark, and then just do like a voiceover of stay tuned for part 2 being shown on this date. And
That
then,
was- it was all about killers and murder and dark stuff. And
Yeah.
stuff. It's just
And
What?
Captain America. And Captain America.
And Captain America. Yeah. Yeah, we got 5 minutes of Captain America.
I hope
So,
you're cutting off all this blabber we do at the end.
oh no, this is the best part.
And what if Stacy? What if Stacy was the watcher? You know.
There you go. I just watch all of you guys.
Doctor diagnose it.
There you go. You guys figure it out amongst yourselves. Take your dog out, young man.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Stacy.
All right, bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Mom.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Good night. Thank you, Stacy.
All right, bye.
Bye, Barry.